Hello everyone and welcome back to another video here on Sam's Crafty Castle. So today I am, for my new subscribers, you definitely haven't seen anything like this, but today's card is fairly easy and was really just the product of me turning my camera on and playing around. I had the Carmel Apple of My Eye stamp set from Fawn, and I had just been kind of itching to play with my watercolors, so that's what I decided to do. So I do this every once in a while where I just sort of turn my camera on and pull out some things that I've been wanting to play with, in this case my watercolors and this stamp set, and I just play with them, and then you get to sort of see a very sped up, cut down version of the process. So I decided I wanted to do something kind of simple for this card, and I admittedly don't love it. Like when I do these videos for all the new subscribers here, which we hit 200 subscribers last week, so that's really exciting. But thank you all for being here. But for those of you who are new, I do this every now and again. I just put my camera on and I make something, because sometimes that's just what you got to do. You got to just sit down and make something. And like I said, I've been itching to play with my watercolors, and I've had this stamp set for a while and I haven't used it, and I decided that it was time to fix that. So my watercolor skills are not great, which is why this is not a teaching video. This is just a try to encourage you to sit down and make something video, because I promise you something is better than nothing, and in the end it's probably a little better than you think it is. Now in this case, I'm not so sure I agree with that. Like I said, this card did not really turn out the way I had envisioned it in my head as I got further and further in the process, but I think it came out somewhat okay. So all I did was I stamped the apple from the Carmel apple from the Carmel Apple of My Eye stamps. I don't even know if that's the name. I might not even be saying the name of that right. And I stamped it on some masking paper. And I was so proud of myself because I did it right first time this time. Usually I always do my masking paper backwards, but I didn't this time. I did it right. So I just cut out 3 apples because I want to do just like a watercolor wash background over these apples. But I also want to watercolor the apples. So I needed to be able to mask them off while I worked on the background, or I wouldn't have been able to watercolor in the apples. This is, I believe, some Strathmore watercolor paper? No, Canson watercolor paper? I'm pretty sure that's what this is. I keep, and someday I'll show you this on a video, I keep a basket near me with different sized panels and different kinds of cards. Not different sizes, but right now they're all A2 panels in different types of cardstock. I have GNK heavyweight, I have GNK layering weight, I have watercolor paper, and then I just have some like text paper, sort of like printer paper, that I use to put on the inside of my darker cards so that I have something to write on. And those I actually bought from somewhere. But so yeah, so I have a basket full of those, and this watercolor paper just came out of that basket. So I'm pretty sure it's probably the Canson stuff, but I can't say for sure. So now I've just masked off my 3 apples, and I did cut the watercolor paper out with a stitched rectangle die that I have, just to give it a little more interest, because like I said, this card's going to be pretty simple. I had at one point intended for it to be like a 1-layer card, but that's just not how, once I finished the watercolor part of it, that's not how it turned out. So I have a thing about blue watercolor backgrounds. I don't know what it is, but it's like my go-to watercolor move is blue. I can't really explain it because I'm not usually someone who gravitates towards that color, although I'm starting to more and more, but blue is not usually a go-to color for me. And this is pretty much what I would change about this card if I were to go back and do it again. I would pick a different background color, because once it's done, maybe it's just the way my brain interprets it, but the apples really look like they're floating when it's done. I think just because the background was blue. So I think if I would have picked I wish I would have gone for like some kind of like red, green, yellow combination. But at the time when I was making this, I was thinking I was going to do a red, green, and yellow apple, and I thought they would get lost in there. And I was trying to do like I used the wrong watercolor technique for this. If we really break it down, what I should have done is done more of a wet on wet technique and got my paper all wet, and then let the watercolor do what I wanted it to, or do what it wanted to do, rather than what I was doing here, which was using a dry paper but using the wet paint. And that was kind of my mistake on this one. I think I would have gotten much more of the sort of bloomy, sort of center out look I was going for if I would have done it the other way, which I didn't figure out until way after I did this. I think I was editing this video and all of a sudden I went, wait, I know why this didn't work. It's because I used the wrong watercolor technique. So, like I said, this video is not really meant to be a tutorial or anything like that. It's just meant to be like, hey, I had fun and here are things I learned along the way, and things I thought about along the way. And like I said, I just want to encourage you guys to do the same thing. Just get in your craft room and make something. Especially if you're starting to struggle with like losing your mojo and stuff like that. It's not always about making something amazing. Sometimes it's just about making something. And I think we all, and myself included, we all get hung up in this, making something amazing thing instead of maybe it's just about making something. I've been stuck there because I had a video that did really well a couple weeks ago, and I've been putting a lot of pressure on myself to try to make another video that performs that well. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to I made something. And this is a hobby for me. I'm not looking to perfect it per se. Get better and learn always, but not necessarily something I'm looking to perfect, and it's just a good reminder. So that's my words of wisdom for today. So I just heat set. That's what I was trying to say. I just heat set the background because the other watercolor tip I do have for you is you always want to make sure your last step is dry before you do the next step, sort of deal. So now I didn't dry the sticks here before I started painting the caramel part, but that's because the caramel and the sticks aren't touching. So now I want to be able to paint the apples, and that's going to touch the caramel stuff, the caramel color. So I can't do that right away, because if I do that, then the water, they will be friends and they will mix. This is the way I always explain it. Water, they want to be friends, and then they mix, and then you get weird colors. So you need to make sure anything you do that's touching is dry. And you'll see I actually do dry the whole thing in a minute here because the sticks weren't quite dry yet, and I needed them to be dry before I painted the apples too. The other thing, there was some other thing. Oh, the other reason I dried it is because the color does look different when it dries. So, you just I was trying to test and make sure the caramel color was going to work for how I wanted it to work. I don't really know why I painted the red apple first, but I did. That's what I did. So I have my red apple, my yellow apple, and I'm going to paint a green apple and touch up some of the sticks a little bit. And that's really as complicated as this card gets. Now at this point I'm already starting to figure out that everything kind of looks like it's floating, and I should have done a different background, and I didn't really know why it didn't look the way it was supposed to in my head, and I should have just picked different colors and it would have been fine. But the apples kind of look like they're floating in a sky, and the way the watercolor felt on the paper, the background looks like a sky. Which reminds me, if you ever need a sky background for something and you want to do it quick and easily, always use watercolor. It makes it really easy, I think. So I'm just stamping the greeting here. It came out of the same little mini Lawn Fawn set that it says, "You are the caramel apple of my eye." And Lawn Fawn puns, gotta love them. My favorite. I love them so much. And I'm just stamping that out in kind of a wonky pattern, sort of deal. It looks cool, but see, even that looks like it's floating because of the blue, so that wasn't really smart. But I ended up figuring out a way to sort of kind of solve my problem. So I ended up using a stitched, and the name will be on the screen and the description and in the description. Wait, no, I do have it written down. Hold on. I did take notes this time. I used the MFT Stitched Basics Edges dies to cut that little curve out of the bottom that matched matched the curve of the apples, because my apples weren't stamped very well either. And glued that to a piece of pattern paper and glued it all together, and that was it. So like I said, this is a very simple card, very easy. Again, watercolors is still something I'm working on learning. I'm not very good at them, and I have a long way to go. So don't be afraid to get in your craft room and try something new. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And I will see you again soon, and have a crafty day.